God. Well, the scene was actually more difficult for the spectators than it was for the child who was performing it. He happens to be one of the best young actors in the world and had spent about a month preparing for the scene before he arrived on set. And so there was absolutely no sense of danger on his part. Mm-hmm. In fact, we started with his coverage, and all the rest of us were bracing for this very disturbing scene. And Rebecca Ferguson and the other actors who played the True Knot were really kind of twirling their mustaches and like, oh yeah, we're going to do this horrible thing, ha 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 ha, and trying to get into character. But one take of watching him go through that, which is all a completely invented performance. He created all of those moments himself because the frame is only this, you know. He finishes his take, covered with sweat and blood. We call cut. He laughs, hops up, high-fives his father, and walks over to the craft service table. While the rest of us are shell-shocked.
Because he shot that scene on his birthday.
Yeah.
And we had given him a cake, which audiences will understand later was red velvet.
And shaped like a
baseball boy. And he walked over to grab a piece of cake at the end and, you know, sort of turned to Mike and like, what's next?
Yeah, he was ready to move on. The crew was shell-shocked for the next hour. And the True Knot, you know, the monsters in the scene, Rebecca was, trying to just squeak her lines out in the face of what he was doing. We turned around to get her coverage, 2 hours later. She had that much time to recover just so she could perform the scene. But yeah, it's a very difficult scene to watch. It's also, though, it was a very difficult scene to read in the book, but it's essential in a pretty profound way as being the engine that kicks everything off and demonstrates the stakes of the whole story. You know, why Abra and Dan need to do anything at all. But yeah, it's rough to watch.
And if it's not rough to watch, then, you know, how does Abra has to pull Dan into the journey that comprises the rest of the movie, and there has to be a compelling engine for that.
Yeah. Oh well, I'm a fan of his, so I had followed him on Twitter, and I just reached out on Twitter.
Right.
I slid into his DMs on Twitter and just said hi. You know, this is what we're up to, and you know, he hasn't acted since The Shining, and so he was really intrigued by what we were doing. He's a teacher. You know, he lives a very very happy life away from you know, the rigors of a movie set, and it was a real thrill to be able to bring him back. But yeah, what a lovely man, and it was. I was starstruck when he showed up on set. It's really impossible not to be.
We only had him for a short amount of time, but we spent most of it asking him questions.
Yeah. I don't know if there's an individual scene. I think the most difficult aspect of this project has always been the knowledge that we're standing in the shadows of, you know, two monolithic storytellers in Stephen King and Stanley Kubrick. Having to figure out how to celebrate both of those creators as reverently as possible, and knowing that, you know, there were going to be very strong opinions about every decision we could ever make creatively with this film, that we were never going to be able to satisfy and please everyone. That level of pressure is something I've never felt professionally in my life, and that was the hardest thing, was trying to kind of come out the other side having properly honored and reconciled that, you know, King and Kubrick Shining universe as well as we could.
Oh, personally as well, because as genre fans, this is not something you want to do badly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Where are we going?
There's a place. You sure you want to do this?
I'm ready.
Yes, you run, dear. And then I will find you. And you will scream for years.
Come play with us forever and ever.